Welcome back to 315 TV. It has been some time since we've last talked, but do not worry, I have quite the stories to tell. Today, we have some first encounter stories from people of the internet about their own situations with the stalker. Are you really safe when people can find who and where you are with just a few Google searches? Maybe you should give your next social media post a thorough look to see if someone might be able to figure out exactly where you were. Our first story shows just how persistent some are when they have figured out your personal details. I had a cyber stalker a couple of years ago. For context, he got into a lot of physical fights at school over the years. Also, he might have been harboring a crush on me since we were kids. This story is not the first time that I've had to turn him down over the years. Dude had behavioral issues, and we had been friends on and off since I was about 7. Dude chatted me up on Facebook one day, and being curious how an old friend was doing, I accepted. Things went fine for a while, but eventually, despite keeping things friends only, he asked me out on a date. I turned him down and said I just wanted to be friends. He did not take no for an answer, so eventually I told him leave me alone and I blocked him. Over the course of a year, he ended up somehow getting my cell and landline numbers. Neither had been posted on the internet by me. I privated my account after this. He eventually messaged my mother on Facebook, begging her to make me talk to him because he wanted another chance, just wanted to be friends. Dude didn't respect my no over text, and I had a sneaking suspicion my no would not matter, even if I ran into him in person. He also called the landline at least half a dozen times a day. I bought pepper spray and was on high alert every time I went out in public. I skipped a mutual friend's funeral because I didn't know if dude was there. He eventually made a fake Facebook account of this really pretty woman, I suspect an Instagram model, to tell me that he was going to take his own life if I didn't talk to him. He and I were both late 20s when this all happened. Also, I don't understand why she couldn't do a welfare checkup on him, since she claimed to also be his friend. I had this additional account blocked as well, and did not see the suicidal message until half a year later, after everything died down, and I was cleaning out my inbox. The dude finally started asking my Facebook friends, which I privated soon after it all started, to tell me to talk to him. Not sure how far he got, but one friend messaged me out of the blue one day, asking how I was. It had been years since I talked to her. I told her I was okay except dealing with this stalker, whose name was XY. And I am grateful she stuck up for me, because after telling her that everything stopped, the entire incident ate away at my mental health, and I had to inform everyone I knew about in case he contacted them somehow. My brother and sister-in-law had just had their first baby at the time, and they didn't need to deal with all this. Thankfully, he left them alone, but still, all in all, it's not as bad as it could have been. But the fact that the dude wouldn't respect me telling him no was very scary, considering he didn't live very far from me and was willing to look up details of my life I didn't post. Our next story shows how those who we trust to guard us and keep us safe might just be the ones causing harm. Let's get into it. I was stalked by my 8th grade teacher for a while. I was 12 to 13, and he was in his 30s, had 2 daughters himself. He was always extremely creepy, and I actually caught him looking under my skirt in class. He literally in class whispered to me that I shouldn't dress in ways that excite men. I was wearing the school uniform. Anyways, for 9th grade, I went to another school and started to get random texts from multiple numbers. He'd text me literally every day, so many times, and say the creepiest stuff. You look good in shorts. Why do you stay up so late? And sometimes inquire me about my studies. I couldn't figure out who it was until one day he started calling me his dear student. It clicked, and I realized it must be him, but I couldn't figure out how he was watching me. Honestly, I still don't know. When I changed schools again and went to a boarding school in another city, he couldn't catch up to me on Instagram. It lasted 6 to 7 weeks. Now, that was pretty creepy. But even when you think you're safe in your own home, sometimes it's just an illusion. It may be the same people you invite into your home that are snooping on you. Well, that is the case with our next story. Now, I belittled it at the time because I was in a bad place mentally and assumed I was just being harsh on the girl. However, I had a roommate who would listen to all of my phone calls and snoop on me. She was smaller than me, so I didn't think much of it, since I didn't feel physically threatened. Psychologically, it was very intense to be watched though, especially since it was during lockdown, so I felt like I had no place I could go to be unobserved. I'll set the scene a bit. It's good to understand my mental state a bit too. When the pandemic was announced as an emergency, my best college friends and I were already searching for an apartment or house to rent for our last year of university. We had already been looking for a couple of months, quite actively, but we were given about 11 days to leave our dorms and find a place to live, or I would have lost my job and been unable to support myself well. Anyways, I had fantastic friends, and we all decided that we needed to work together and stick together for it to be doable. We ended up subletting, but struggled to transfer the lease because of a bad landlord situation. Consequently, we had to move out of the house and leave our things there while we tried to transfer the lease. We essentially got evicted twice in a 3-month period and had nowhere to go. We spent a couple of weeks moving in between Airbnbs and living out of 2 cars. I was running out of money and time, so about 2.5 weeks into this ordeal, we finally transferred the lease. But we needed one more roommate to cover rent, and we had an extra room anyway. I figured, hey, we went through so much to find housing, and it was already hard enough in the city we were in, so I might as well help somebody else out. A classmate I had for a semester or two who I spent some time out of class with was also looking for housing. I decided to help her out. We had seen a couple of movies together and had fun, so I felt really optimistic. She moves in and takes the room next to mine, and everything is going swimmingly for the first few weeks. However, she starts singling me out in conversations and talking over my other 2 friends while we are all hanging out. She starts getting really fixated on my interests and starts insulting my long-distance partner really regularly. Seriously, at least 5 times a day, she would tell me that I was getting groomed because of having an older partner, despite me being 21 to 22 at the time. I think, okay, weird and hurtful, but a lot of people have bad experiences with age gap relationships, and she doesn't know me, so that's fine. What started really changing things is when my friends and I would hang out together, and she would sit across from us on her laptop, just typing away and watching us while we chatted. If any of us walked past her laptop, she would slam it shut. She started referencing things that I said in private conversations with my boyfriend or my family members. Our house had thick walls, and my other friends never heard my phone calls, which meant she was going into the closet of her room to listen to my phone calls with other people. She would try to follow me everywhere and kept trying to drive me apart from my other friends. She would also try to get me to be very physically affectionate with her and comfort her despite us not really even being friends. She would only eat my food and not other people's food, and she would always glom into any friends I brought home to the extent that I stopped inviting people over for about a year. It was not dangerous, but so odd. I assumed it was a response to stress during the pandemic, but after a few years and a lot of self-healing, I realized how creepy it is and had been glad it didn't escalate. If it hadn't been during lockdown, it wouldn't have upset me so much. But there was nowhere I could really go without being surveilled, and it creeped me out so badly, especially since she was also bi like me. And so it felt like a little voyeuristic to be that obsessed with my love life and my body and stuff. I also have a separate online stalker who still keeps finding access to my different accounts, even if I block him over and over. It hasn't escalated, and it seems that he's finally stopped, but it took 10 years. Very eerie to have someone to be that good at tracking you down, though. Be very careful with who you trust, or you could end up sharing your story on an online messaging board too. Stay safe. Until next time.